Council, can we have a roll call, please? Yeah, we'll speak up, Mr. Mohill. Okay, Artie, can we have a roll call?
Here. Here.
Here, can we hear your report? Mr. City Attorney, do you anticipate reporting out?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor, we do not anticipate reporting out.
I have a number of cards. The first card is Richard Espiritu, to be followed by Herbert Molano.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council and staff. I am Richard Espiritu. I understand they're going to be going into closed session shortly. I'd also like to know an answer to my question. There are 3 outside candidates, all of which have been picked from smaller cities than the city of Glendale that did not have full service operation. And one of the 3 candidates has a questionable background. He seems to be very similar to the individual in Bell by the name of Mr. Rizzo. He hasn't gotten that bad, but it's very interesting. And I want to know why this meeting, where you're going to be interviewing the candidates for the most important staff position in the city, is not going to be aired publicly, because I would love to know what your questions are and their answers by these candidates for the City Council. Thank you very much.
Herbert Molano, followed by Mike Mohill.
Good morning, Mayor Friedman, members of the City Council. My name is Herbert Molano. When I ask myself the question, how does an organization develop the criteria for selecting the leadership of its leadership for the long haul, and how it would impact the overall functioning and the impact it would have on its residents and its stakeholders, I figured that we ask the same typical questions. What is the evaluation of the knowledge the person carries and brings forth? What is the formal education? What's the college degree? What's the post-graduation education that they bring forth? It also required an evaluation of the experience relevant to the general duties and responsibilities. It also includes an evaluation of the effectiveness of that experience. It also should include how that experience fits the challenges of the organization. Because I believe that Glendale faces some very significant challenge that is known to all of you. There is a severe financial situation that requires a very significant amount of acumen with regard to how to handle the financial problems having to do with the growth in the cost of various different departments, the lower expected revenues that the city is expecting due to the financial condition of the country. And there's also the issue of the risk that the city faces with regard to issues about the law and safety. The city of Glendale has had a very significant problem with issues having to do with the police. The lawsuits from the policemen to in challenging its own internal organization in the city. And I think that is the growth in their budget that has basically doubled in the past 10 years. And the impact that it has had overall with regard to the loss of the financial ability for the city to create a better quality of life. I think that anyone that you would consider for this position needs to have some type of proven record of the ability to tackle complex issues and then have the acumen of outstanding leadership. It is my hope that when you do evaluate someone, that there will be some type of verifiable record that we can look into, that we can come back and have the confidence that the decisions that you made follow some type of logical approach to it. My best wishes to you and your decision. We all will depend significantly on what you are going to decide today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Mohill to be followed by Barry Allen.
Good morning, Mayor. My name is Mike, and council members. My name is Mike Mohill, a long-term resident of Glendale. I rarely come before this podium and talk about any one particular person who I think, from what I've read, what I've seen, and who I've talked with, is a man by the name of George Chipchen, and I can't even pronounce his name correctly. But I've looked around, I've talked to people about him, and they say to me, his record is great. He's got character. I interchanged with I'll just use the word George instead, while I was pushing, trying to get soccer fields for South Glendale and other recreational facilities for South Glendale. Always respectful, always knowledgeable. I'm talking about the public trust this morning and what the message will be when we choose our next city manager. Do we want to have a cloud over our next city manager saying this is politics? What is the message we're going to be telling the community? We have interns working in the outer lobby every Tuesday morning, every Tuesday evening, directing people to come to council chambers. What is the message to them? That we didn't get the best, we got the most political person instead? Now, in all due respect to Mr. Hagani and Mr. Zern, I like them both. They're good men, okay? But when I start asking questions from people that I respect, and they tell me it's George, I said, well, let me do my own research. So I went to the internet, and I found actually 5 different articles about Mr. George, and he has a record of success. The Long Beach Signal newspaper glorified him with all his responsibility and what he's done for Long Beach. Long Beach is a major city. If they think our previous director was good enough there, and he has a good record there, and now he wants to be considered for Glendale, it's wonderful. He even was, from what I read, he was also a councilman in the city of Duarte. He has a vast knowledge of government. This is what we want. This is not going to be on-the-job training, is it? I need somebody who can step into the city manager's job tomorrow and say, you know what, I know what's going on in Glendale because I've been here. I know who I can talk with. But most of all, he brings with him good character and good record. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry Allen, followed by Harry Zavos.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's gratifying to look through the room and see people that have been called malcontents, gadflies, and all sorts of other names. But those are the stakeholders in this city. Those are your constituents. And they each have a stake in the outcome of what you're going to do today. Today represents an opportunity to bring Glendale back to its financial health that has deteriorated under the management of the retiring city manager. A person whose employees came first in number and in pay and benefits. A person that believed, as did Robert Rizzo in Bell, that borrowing was better than paying as you go. Today is the time to put aside friendships with employees and seek the best person that has the understanding and comprehension of good fiscal management. Today is the time to set aside petty issues and concentrate on what is best for the stakeholders, residents, ratepayers, taxpayers, and businesses. Are there problems? Yes, there are problems of the cost of coming and ongoing lawsuits, major personnel issues, and the unfunded liabilities, almost $1 billion of bond debt. Going to be resolved by public works or community planning? They won't be resolved by bringing in people with no or little experience in managing full-service cities with their own utility company and full public safety. This is your opportunity to be remembered as the council that brought the manager in who was able to right the train wreck that this city is headed for. Unfortunately, the process of selecting the new city manager has been beset by the control of the present manager. Do your interviews with a clear mind, erase the whispers that you have heard, and remember that your vote will be public and your constituents will be watching as you create your legacy. Thank you. I'm Barry Allen.
Terry Zavos, followed by Don Mazen.
My name's Harry Zavos. I'm a citizen of Glendale. I have no brief for a particular candidate, nor for an internal versus an external candidate. I do want to say something about the criteria selected in order to screen candidates. As I understand it, it's a two-tier system with lower qualifications for an internal candidate versus an external candidate. And I must tell you, I think that is an unfairness to an internal candidate should you select one. And it seems to me, should you select an internal candidate, in order for there to be widespread confidence in your decision, as well as in that candidate, you must do one of two things. Either you must do away with a two-tier system which has lower qualifications for an internal candidate versus an external candidate, and one which I understand excludes from consideration somebody who worked in this city and who would be qualified under that lower criteria if he hadn't accepted a job at a bigger city with more responsibility. You must either do away with that, or what you must do is today to the public explain why that two-tier system serves the interest of the people of Glendale. If you don't do either of those two things, and if you should select an internal candidate, then fairly or unfairly, that candidate will never be able to dispel the suspicion in the minds of many that they got the job not because they were the best candidate, but because they were unfairly given a leg up. And furthermore, fairly or unfairly, you will give credence to the rumor that's been kicking around here since this process began, that the fix was in from the beginning.
Don Mazen, followed by Lenore Solis.
Good morning, Mayor Friedman, members of the City Council and staff. My name is Don Mazen, a 30-year resident of Glendale and a retired newspaper journalist. I'm here today because the information I have is that the Glendale City Council has already selected the new city manager. This is before you are going to adjourn and go over to the Glendale Hilton Hotel and supposedly pick the new city manager. This is something I hope somebody can clarify this. The person that you have picked, the planning director, Mr. Hassan, is totally without material, without background to be a city manager. He's been a very good planning director, I understand. He's done that job well. I'm just really concerned that he is apparently the person who has been selected already. Something else I want to say is that the City Council, in choosing or in setting up a screening process, has established different standards for the candidates. City employees who are running don't have to have the background of a city manager. And then any former employee of Glendale is not qualified to be a candidate. And then, of course, the outside candidates have to have a background of the city manager. So I can understand why there was a change, or why you had 3 different standards when all of the people, all the candidates should be on the same level. And one other thing, the candidates that you have come up with, and I understand there's 25, they all, at least the ones that the outside candidates, represent cities, small cities under 100,000. So we're talking about Glendale, nearly 200,000. So why don't we have some candidates for people who represent that size city? So I did want to come up this morning and tell my concerns, and thank you for listening.
Lenore Solis is my last card.
Good morning, Lenore Solis, resident of Glendale. I'm disappointed that you're not, you don't have this on GTV. I think it's important that all of us feel like the community is a part of this, and I understand that as a representative form of government, each and every one of you represents the community. I too am disappointed that for some reason in this city we lower our standards when we want to recruit from within. When we wanted to recruit a new fire captain after Chief Gray left, you lowered the standards. When you want to recruit a lieutenant, you lower the standards. It's disappointing. And here we have an opportunity to bring in the community to work with you to make this very important selection. And for some reason it seems like there's all these rumors and horrible ideas that you've already are going to take the direction of our current city manager, who is a good and decent man and clearly a wonderful husband, but he came from a smaller city, and unfortunately the city is not in better condition today than it was when he arrived. So for whatever reasons, whether it lied within his decision making or his inability to acknowledge what was coming in the future, I don't know. But clearly, we are not in a better position today than we were when he arrived. And I think it's really important, what everyone else has said before me, is that here we have an opportunity with George Chapchian, who I am a fan of. He's the only guy I ever heard stand up here and say, I made a mistake. You don't hear that too often from a director who stands before you. And he was hired by the second largest city in the county. We are the third. He was hired by the second largest city in the county, and he has a breadth of experience that is so important for us that we should acknowledge that. You know, if somebody had told Steve Jobs, hey, I can't invest in your company because you don't have a college degree, then, imagine that visionary not getting the money to start Apple. I mean, he didn't have a college degree, but he had something else that's more important. He had vision. He had experience. He knew where he wanted to go. And I just think that it's such a disservice to our city for you off the bat to just say, oh, a candidate like George Chapchian is not a possible candidate because he doesn't have the right degrees from whatever degrees you think is important. But if he were still working for the city, then there wouldn't be a problem. He would be able to be a candidate. It's just not fair to all of us who have to sit here week by week and listen to the decision making and the rationale behind your decision making. Please put aside whatever friendship or respect you have for the current city manager and just make a decision using each and every one of your intellect. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll recess to closed session.
Madam Mayor, I was remiss. My microphone was off when I read the report. So just for the record, I'd like to read again that the agenda for this meeting, the special closed session meeting of the Glendale City Council, was posted on October 19, 2011 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. And this is a closed session for public employee appointment of city manager.
We are recessed to closed session.